Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Peter Jennings, and I go by CSURAM88 across the daily fantasy industry. And pumped to be back again doing another lineup review, this time of the Week 6 NFL contest for the 2016 season. Pretty crazy how fast the NFL season's flying by. The NHL has just started up, PGA is back, and the NBA is coming on Wednesday. So it's the best time of year if you're a huge sports fan. I am obsessed, so I'm excited. And going to be reviewing a cash game, or my two cash game lineups, in addition to the Millionaire Maker. Have a couple interesting things to take a look at here, and I think that this will be helpful for you guys. So let's take a look here at my two cash game teams. This contest is a really good contest to review as well. It's a $1,000 double up on DraftKings. It's $70,000 guaranteed, first to 35th, get $2,000. So basically, you have to finish, a little bit higher than in the top 50%. You have to finish in the top 35 out of 75. But the nice thing is, $70,000 is guaranteed on only $75,000 taken in. So really nice, low fee, and some of the best players in the world are in this, and really fun to look at and compete in this double up here. So the first cash game team I went with actually finished second, so I had a great team here. I went with Drew Brees at quarterback across the board on DraftKings. I thought he was a mortal lock, essentially, to get over 300 yards passing, which is great equity with the passing yard bonus. He's been incredible at home. On the year now, I think he's averaging about 420 yards passing per game at home. The matchup against Carolina was ideal. They've been awful in the secondary. Matt Ryan also torched Carolina. Now we've seen Drew Brees do it at home. So I think you can really attack Carolina in the passing game. And Drew Brees was just a play that I was pretty much locked into on DraftKings. Le'Veon Bell is the other guy that I used 100%, and it's interesting. He's 90.7% owned in this 1K double up. So all the sharps on Le'Veon Bell was basically a lock for me on DraftKings with his pass catching. I was less bullish on Ben Roethlisberger just with the big splits, and credit to Adam Levitan. He called Miami in this spot, and just a classic where a huge underdog at home plays well. And Pitt just got unfortunate, or was unlucky, I guess, with Ben Roethlisberger getting injured. But Le'Veon Bell is going to be a staple in cash games when Big Ben is playing and the offense is in a good spot. Next running back is LaShawn McCoy. I had him essentially in 100% of cash game lineups, and was my Le'Veon Bell and LaShawn McCoy were pretty much on every team in tournaments, which is unfortunate. I didn't do better since they did both relatively well, especially Shady McCoy. Huge game. Hashtag narrative streak came to fruition. A lot of people talking about how LaShawn McCoy was going to go off against Chip Kelly in San Francisco, the coach who traded him. It was great to see him do well. Had a scare. Looked like he might have really injured his knee at the end of the first half. He had already gotten 20 fantasy points, but he did look like it was going to be bad. Grabbed his knee immediately, but fortunately came back in and had a great second half as well. Cameron Meredith, a guy who ended up having a big game in garbage time, or not garbage time, but at the end of the game. I thought he was basically a lock as well. I was buying him. That position on the Bears has seen a ton of action, whether it be Kevin White or Meredith. Alshon Jeffrey was also going against Jalen Ramsey, which I think is something to pay attention to. Jalen Ramsey is good in Jacksonville. He's the first-round pick who I think has a lot of talent. I thought that would lead to more targets for Meredith as well. And he performed with a huge game. So here's the next play, Jalen Strong, who I basically had on 80% of teams in GPPs and cash games. He was one of my biggest positions in the portfolio, and he completely had a huge dud. It was very interesting throughout the day, just kind of following all the news. Adam Schefter reported initially in the morning that it was unlikely that he would play. He didn't practice Friday. There's a lot of signs pointing to him not playing, and I was going with that. And then there was news from Jake Glazer that he was going to be active and could play. He ends up being active, which is scary before the game starts. I really couldn't do much about it at that point. But it's announced that Fuller's going to be active, so then Jalen Strong would be the 3 receiver. And, he's an active player that gets 0 snaps. So he was in case of emergency only. And Jalen Strong got all the snaps, was in a great spot. Still feel really good about the thought process in the play. Basically the thought process was with Houston in a good spot against a bad defense in Indianapolis at home. This is a position where Brock Osweiler could play relatively well. And if you look at the matchup, Indianapolis is really bad against the number 2 receiver because they have a really elite number 1 corner when he's healthy in Vontae Davis. And these stats played out more last year. But now that Vontae Davis is back from injury, getting healthier, I thought this could be the play again. And unfortunately, Brock was terrible to start the game and then just zoned in on Hopkins, who actually did a pretty good job with Vontae Davis draped all over him. So frustrating to see Jalen Strong out there on every snap. I like the thought process. Maybe the one flaw in the plan was Brock Osweiler is not that great, and Jalen Strong's not an elite talent or anything. He's pretty average, actually, maybe below average, honestly, at the receiver position. And he got that one catch at the end, which was nice, at least to get some points, but certainly a dud performance from Jalen Strong, although I do feel pretty good about the thought process considering he was only $3,000 min price. Michael Thomas, played him a ton, loved him with Breeze. I peppered all the Saints pass catchers around the industry. Ended up with a lot of Michael Thomas just because of price. Had Cooks a ton in tournaments, and then also actually exposure to Snead and Coby Fleener. So all the guys went off for the Saints. It's expected when Drew Brees throws for 465 yards. But Michael Thomas had a solid game, and at his price was a good play. And this team, I ended up using Greg Olsen, who wasn't the best tight end points per dollar. But at the end on Sunday, I just realized I didn't quite have enough Greg Olsen, who was in a great spot. Easily could have had a much bigger game. You look at Carolina scoring, 38 points. We saw what he did 2 weeks ago. Gets really close to the bonus. Almost hasn't a huge game, but still happy with the play, even though he was expensive tight end. You end up getting the savings with Meredith, Strong, and Thomas. And then I went with Lamar Miller in the flex, who I sprinkled in a lot of different guys in this third spot. I used some DeMarco Murray with Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy. I used a little bit of different. I had different combinations, obviously, in tournaments, but I had a little bit of Jordan Howard, I think, in some league spots, so some more equity there. But it was a tough spot. I thought Lamar Miller was a good option. He obviously had a huge game. I was really excited about using him in general in tournaments, and I wish I would have pulled the trigger on more, obviously. But it was a great spot for him, great matchup, and he went off. This is a guy who's getting a ton of opportunity and in good spots. I think Lamar Miller is a good play. And then I'd use the Bears D as a punt, and I thought they were in a pretty good spot at home versus Jacksonville, even though the defense isn't great. Defense is a harder position to predict in general, so that was the most enticing punt to me, and I thought the rest of the lineup was really good and scored 199.5 points, so definitely solid. Looking at my second team, LaShawn McCoy, Jimmy Graham, a lot of the same guys, same receivers. The difference here was Titans, Jimmy Graham, and DeMarco Murray. So again, I referenced how I used DeMarco Murray. So Jimmy Graham was grading out as the best points per dollar tight end at only 4,900. Had a great game. Could have even had a bigger game. I think that this is the Jimmy Graham of old that we're seeing now, which is great. And he could have really went off in this spot. And you can see here he's been having a pretty good season so far. So definitely excited about using him going forward. And like the play, paid up it for the Titans defense, who are more expensive than the Bears by I believe $1,000. They're 3,300. And then DeMarco Murray. So I ended up playing this team as well. I thought both were viable options. You can see I was all in on 6 guys on all the lineups. I had Breeze, the 3 receivers, Le'Veon Bell and LaShawn McCoy on all the rosters. And that's kind of how I attack cash games. Real quick here, taking a look at the winning lineup. A lot of the same plays with Tavon Austin and Jarvis Landry, but also had Coby Fleener, who ended up going off in Lamar Miller. So congrats to everyone who cashed in that. Hope you guys enjoyed the cash game review. Now let's take a look here at the Millionaire Maker. And pretty nice performance from Malin21. Yeah, I'd take that. First, third, and then 2 teams tying for 4th. That is pretty good. Take home quite a bit of cash, as you can see right there. $1 million up top, and then all those secondary prizes. Huge weekend for Malin21. And the key here was Kenny Britt was the differentiator at 2.9%. All the other guys were somewhat common plays. I had a good amount of Golden Tate. I actually played him in the Thunderdome. Stafford was a nice low-owned quarterback, but the rest of the lineup is somewhat chalky. Did get Gronk in there as well. Great play and just an incredible team and one of the best performances I've ever seen in a DFS tournament. So congratulations to Malin21. Now let's do something fun. Let's look at the teams I made. I made 150 teams, and I made them all in FantasyLabs. We actually have some new tools coming out to help the team making process even more. I used the beta version when I did this, and it's fantastic. So We're going to have some really cool stuff out there for you guys that I'm really excited about. Made the whole process even easier. But we'll take a look here at my scores. So my best team here was Drew Brees, Le'Veon Bell, LaShawn McCoy, Tavon Austin, Cooks, Meredith, Fleener, Jimmy Graham, and Titans D. I pretty much talked about all these guys. I did use Cooks a lot in tournaments. I thought he had a lot of upside. He's more likely to catch a 70-yard touchdown than pretty much everyone, and also a guy to pay attention to as big home run splits. So play Brandon Cooks in good matchups when he's at home and he can use his speed. I think that's a great option. And Tavon Austin was really the one who let me down. I had some Kenny Britt across the industry, not enough. Probably should have pivoted more because he was 16% versus Britt, who was 2.9%. And they're both similar price, $3,900 and $3,700. So Tavon Austin let me down. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Let's scroll all the way down here so you can see. Let's take a look here. I haven't actually done analysis on this yet either, but it pays 70,623 spots. So the last lineup to cash for me was this lineup at 147.58. So had a good ratio cash. You can see you will get a good chunk of money back if you put together some good teams, even if you don't have a huge finish. But then you obviously miss a lot too. So let's look at my worst team. All right, so this is the worst team. I used some Big Ben. I ended up getting in around 5% in tournaments of Big Ben. I wanted him and Antonio Brown because I didn't have enough exposure to Antonio Brown. And even though he had an awful game, it's always terrifying fading him. So one way if you're playing a lot of volume to kind of hedge yourself is get a little bit of exposure to guys that you know have a huge upside, but you're not really using in cash games. And Antonio Brown was just too expensive to use in cash. So I ended up fading him in cash games, but did use him in tournaments. And a lot of these teams, I'm sure, are Big Ben teams. If we just look through them, more Big Ben. Yeah. So Big Ben here, worst team. I still like the players. I used Giovanni Bernard. He was one of my contrarian cheap running backs I probably had in 25% of my tournaments. That was one of my contrarian plays. Thought I had a lot of upside catching the ball against the Patriots, especially if they were playing from behind. DeMarco Murray, Tavon Austin, Antonio Brown, Jarvis Landry, who was a really good play, I thought. Jesse James, Jalen Strong, and Titans D. So 81.56. I look at the lineup and I don't hate any of the plays, and that's the nice thing. And you want to build around a core. You want to make sure you're using guys that you think are viable and go from there. So hope that was helpful for you guys. Definitely a fun week here in week 6. Hope to keep it going on week 7. We'll have a lot more content here at Fantasy Labs for the week. And as always, good luck, and hope to see more Fantasy Labs subscribers at the top of the leaderboard.